Ivy.
Matt, you're live.
Are we on live?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us here today. For being here today to mark the 1-year anniversary of the first reported death due to COVID-19 in the state of Iowa. My name is Matt Sinovic. I'm the executive director of Progress Iowa, and along with a coalition of dozens and dozens of organizations from across the state, elected officials, and community leaders, we are honored to be here today to help memorialize those that we have lost over this past year. This has the first death due to COVID in Iowa was reported on March 24th of 2020, and in the past year, more than 375,000 Iowans have contracted this disease, and as of this morning, 5,689 have died as a result. Now, we're all experiencing this in different ways, but today we are recognizing those who have paid the ultimate price. I want to thank all the sponsoring organizations, the elected officials, and everyone who's helped made this day possible. And I want to encourage everyone who's watching and listening right now to go to iowacovidmemorial.org and if you have lost a loved one, a family member, a friend, a neighbor to this disease, you're welcome to submit a name there, and we will leave that up as a live virtual memorial. You can share their story, share a picture, share a memory if you'd like, and we hope that this helps bring some peace and helps you remember them in a fond way. We have a terrific lineup of elected officials and leaders who are here today to recognize and read some of these names. We have of the 5,600 Iowans who have passed away due to COVID-19. We have around 700 names to read today to remember these Iowans. So up first, I want to introduce my friend Connie Ryan, the Executive Director of the Interfaith Alliance of Iowa. Connie.
Thank you, Matt. Parents and grandparents, children and siblings, friends and neighbors, thousands of Iowans in every county, urban and rural, in nearly every town. Iowans who matter to those in their own circle, Iowans who matter to you and me. Let us take a moment to remember each person who has died of COVID-19 in the last year. Let us hold their families, friends, and communities in our hearts. We are also thinking about all the Iowans who have COVID-19, as well as those dealing with the after effects. Our hearts are with them. This has been a long journey. We have struggled to find some sense of normalcy, even when there is a bit of light ahead. We know that normal will be very different in the future. It is so critical to look beyond ourselves to the common good and to hold our leaders and ourselves accountable so that all Iowans have the opportunity to live full and healthy lives, free from the threat of COVID-19 in our state and across this nation. Be safe, stay well, wear a mask, get your shots. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mike McCarthy, the Iowa State President for the Alliance for Retired Americans. As far as the people that we're going to remember today and all the Iowans we've lost to this pandemic, I say, may God have mercy on their souls, forgive them their sins, and lead them to everlasting life. We needn't be here today. This did not have to happen. Now, I'm 78 years old, and I live in this pandemic with a target on my back, just like all the other seniors. Around 70 to 80% of us seniors who contract COVID-19 have died. Our high-level leadership from our state to our country reminds me of the greatest steamship in existence, the Titanic. The captain's goal was not a safe passage across the Atlantic Ocean, but to set a new speed record. Full speed ahead, never mind the warning about icebergs. Early in 2019, we were told that this virus would be like the flu. It would disappear when weather got hot. Now, the guidance from prior pandemics was disparaged, and the equipment, supplies, and personnel were dismissed and somehow disappeared. Our leaders was more interested in the Dow Jones Industrial Average hitting 30,000. It was more interesting to him than in fighting the pandemic. Instead of safety mandates, he provided tax breaks for the benefactors of his to speed up the economy. And other leaders followed his example. You will be remembered for the decisions you make in a crisis. Today, we remember those who needlessly fell to this unnecessary crisis. We must remember how we got here, why, and pledge to never, never have this happen again. So, wear your mask. Wash your hands. Keep a safe distance from others. And get vaccinated. And we will prevail.
Good afternoon on this sad and dreary, appropriately dreary anniversary. My name is Marty Anderson, and I live in Des Moines, and I represent Northwest Des Moines in the Iowa House. I want to read a short poem before I begin anything else. It's called At the Beginning of COVID by Noel Cocotte. Night, 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 and the shadows that wane talk to us. The music rounds up, exempt from history. It's an endless canceling out of divinity, ready to speak. Again, saying I am here, I'd call it endless. Endless. What is stripped of its mortality goes on like a soldier to war. But we can't do that, not really. Instead, we find balance. On the head of a pin with the angels, I've spent hours lettering the borders of this world. My cohorts, I don't believe the laments about leaving our lives, but I do believe it. There is elegy, as green as grass. Nothing is touching me anymore. And the spring rain is peace. I will now start reading the names of Iowans who we have lost to the COVID pandemic. Andrew Cosano, James Harry Craig, Harriet Joan Crandall, Ken Crane, Jennifer Crawford, Thomas Cross, Raymond L. Curl, Cynthia Curran, April Damewood, Cherry Dandurand, Jay Daniels, Alvin Darling, Robert Scott Dara, Ruth David, Edison James Davis, Dixie Deichler, John DeMarco, Margaret Peggy Demke, Howard Eli DeVore, Larry Duell, Delbert Dittman, Beverly Dixon, James Dixon, Richard Dewar, Thelma Dosher, Henry Delmer Donald, David Donji, Shirley Dunboos, Patricia Bourne,
Dwayne Ernest Dostal, Robert Dotson, Henry Earl Drake, Jean Edward Dreyer, Richard Duclos, Anna Dudgeon, Kenny E. Duke, Harold Arthur Duncan, Barry Frederick Duncan, Mary Lorraine Dunn, George L. Dyer Sr., Marion Dyer, Bob Eatock, Bonnie Ebel, Julia Ebel, Carlene Susan Edwards, and Abby Irene Eichmann.
Robert Eugene Taylor, Gail Bergen, Janet Marie Besch, Jacqueline Lucille Bieber, Danny Ray Bierman, Eugene Bird Sr., Bill Burke III, Diana Bixenman, Gerald Jerry Bixler, John Johnny Bjornson, Todd Blandford, Dolores Block, Burnett Bloomquist, Geraldine Jean Blubaugh, Michael Mick Blubaugh, Carol Jean Blumberg, James F. Boson Sr., Vernell J. Bernard, Donna Boomershire, Daniel Lee Boone, Rudolph Dean Boonstra, Beverly Jean Busetta, Lee E. Bossum, Gilbert Bovard, Donald James Bolin, Warren Coleman Bolus, Shirley Bowman, Mary Boyd Dorman, Marianne Bradford, Kenneth Eugene Bratney, Robert Brecht, Norma Breitbach, Brenda Brewer, Bill Bride, Milo Brokaw, Nancy Brokaw, Darla Eileen Brown, Donald Brown, Kyle Brown, Richard W. Brown, John Pearson Brucker, Bill Brunsman, Marilyn Ann Brunsvold, Timothy Christopher Bryant, Joy Buchan, Douglas Doug Lee Budd, Walter Budd Jr., Ph.D.
Connie Abeglin, George Abelbeatley, Alonzo Adams II, Clifton Adams Jr., Dwayne Keith Aarons, Tyler Ambergy, Paul Anderson, Annabelle Anderson, Edith Anderson, Keith Anderson, Marilyn June Anderson, Martha Anderson, Leora Andorf, Jean Andrews, Mitchell Andrews, Patricia Android, Jose Andre Garcia, Sadiq Mohammed Arab, Darla Aarons, Peter Armatis, James Austin, Jose Ayala, David Backus, Lonnie Bailey, Mark Bailey, Robert Lee Bailey Jr., Jeanette Baldwin, Larry Ball Sr., Victor Barhona, Shirley Ray Barbier, Tom Barnato, Faye Ann Barr, Patricia Pat Bartles, Shirley Louise Barton, Joan Bauer, Kenneth Baxa, Theodore Bean Jr., Dorothy Beaton, Jack Begtol, Ronald Behrens, Ruth Marie Beisner, Alo Bell, Diana Marie Dutcher, Patricia Ann Behrens, Elaine May Bergen.
Joan Stabenow, Melvin Mel Stamer, Glenn Roger Stanfoot, Donald Jean Starvich, Dwight Stearns, Dave Steckel, Tom Stevenson, Henry Hank Steinwald, Judy Stevens, Gary Stevens, Elmer Skip Stoddard, Carol Stolman, Jerry Dean Stockton, Donna Story, Jonathan William Strain, Barbara Strait, David Streets, William Stearns, Vera Mae Stoltz, Isla Mae Storm, Nina Stuhl, Nathan Stuka, Dolores Sturgeon, Dolores Sukamel, Zola Marie Summerson, Arthur L. Spladle, Robert Swoboda, Judith Taylor, Robert Frank Taylor, Janet L. Temple, Lyle Thayer, Judy Tenhouse, Rick Tees, Margaret Thing, Regina Marie Theory, Gary Thomas, Raymond Tom Thomas, Dorothy Dot Thomas, Robert Bob D. Thompson, Lowell Titus, Linda Tompkins, Dorothy Topping, Eldon Fennell, Casey Tweedy, Roland Tweet, Lisa Upa.
Representative Chuck Eisenhardt from Dubuque, where we now have over 200 dead, including the very first death in Iowa, a woman who came back from her overseas travels and who suffered from a pre-existing condition. And also my good friend Steve Hodge from Dubuque, as well as these names that I'm reading off, and apologize for any mispronunciations. James Urbash, John A. Voluxas Jr., Phyllis Vandersluis, Ben Van Hove, Ray Allen Van Langen, Ruth Ann Lass Van Meter, Raymond Van Dyke, Alice Van Hooser, Stephen James Van Riper, Ronald Versluis, Gail Vetter, Robert Vadimos II, Dale Fires, Tom Vint, Bernice Vogel, Donnie Wackel, Michael D. Wall Sr., Jeanette Wakeman, Catherine Waldman Murphy, Levon Bonnie Wallace, William Bill Wallace, Leona Walbaum, Marilyn Jean Wallen, Daryl Walters, Joanne Walther, Connie Wasink, Ann Weaver, Betty Jean Shell Webb, Rita Wyden, Lila Weipert, June Welsh, Connie Welsh, Ruth Wellscott, Robert Wenzel, Dan Westemeyer, Janet Westhoff, Paul Werger, Larry Whaley, Carol White, Jerry Wayne Weeder, Joanne Wilch, Clellan Wildis, Joseph Wilhelm, Bryce Wilson, Sharon Ray Wilson, and Janine Wingert.
Representative Mary Wolf from Clinton, and to the families of all these Iowans, I am so sorry for your loss. Betty Winterfield, Arlene Whitrock, Wicca Itty Wicca, Mike Wolf, Max Wolfgram, Terry Lou Wood, David Worthington, Deborah Wright, John Wright, and Stephen Wright, Phyllis Roble, James Woobens, Chuck Wyatt, Elvin Al Yoder, Delbert Van Young, Donald Young, William Roy Young, Michael Zawisowski, Frank Zieser, June Zirkelbach, Witten George Nerold, and Sharon Zumbranen.
I'm Claire Celsi. I'm a state senator representing the western portion of Des Moines and West Des Moines, as well as the town of Cumming. Forrest Buffington, Sadiqa Bulick, Jane Bullard, Raymond Gale Coach Burgett, Frank Burton, Ronnie Butler, Joe Butterfield, Ron Buxton, Bruce Byerly, James Quinton Cahill, Paul Wesley Calhoun, Charles Callahan, Elaine Susan Callahan, Jean Callaghan Sammons, Cynthia Carey, Carol Carlson, Michael Carr, Loretta Carruthers, Thomas Snappy Catron, Richard Allen Chamney, Joe Chastain, Judy Chastain, Marvel Chapman, Roger Christensen, George Christofferson, Stephen Joe Chomri Cheramosta, Kathy Churchill Holder, Marvin Maynard Clark, Ruth Clark, Terry Lynn Clark, Dorothy Clausen, Elmer Clausing, Arlene Edwards Clement, Jessica Snowden Clements, Dorinda Gale Coates, Roger Coe, Mary A. Cole, Keith Danny Conrad, Darren L. Cook, Jerome Coolidge, Elizabeth Couvert, Rebecca Koppel, Raimundo Corral, Roger Corey.
Hello again. I'm Mike McCarthy, president of the Iowa Alliance for Retired Americans. There are some more people we've lost. Sandra Sue Ike, Shirley Ellsbury, Florence Mary Emmerich, Nancy Emery, Jason Englert, Christy Jill Ernst, Gary Lee Eichen, Dorothy M. Edson, Kathy Jo Everett, Stephen Everett, Michael Everhard, Shirley Farley, Isidro Fernandez, Judith Ann Fetters, Barbara M. Fitch, William Flattery, Robert Michael Flanders, Dorothy Flick, Doris Flynn, Joseph Robert Fouts, Eugene Fraze, Goldie Frank, Ronald France, Glenn William Fraser, Patrick Pat Freeland, Mark Friedow, Judith Frondel, Daryl Fuller, Jean Fuller, Judy Fuller, Richard First, John Gallus, Marguerite Kinau, Judith Garbers, Roberta Jean Gardner, Blaze Chavera Garcia, Oberino Garcia, Dwayne Charles Gittler, David Gearless, Sharon Guile, Raymond Guile, Shauna Eileen Gilliland, James Nicholas Gilman, Darlene Catherine Godar, Leroy Godin, John Gomez, Jesse Gonzalez, Mary Gorsh, Joyce Gould, Ron Graff, Genevieve M. Gray, Jeanette Green, Jerry Grings, Jane Gronert, Norris Gronert, George Grubb, Lois Gruz, John Grabowski, Jason Gwynn, Wilma Haberkamp, Eldon Haynes, David Doug Hall Jr., James Lynn Pete Hall, Marion Hankner, Paul N. Hansen, Marina Harbert, Robert Harrell, Donna Harmon, Mildred M. Harmon, Glenda Harms, Teresa Harney, Marilyn Harnish, Helen Louise Harrison, Michael Harrington, Ann Harris, Charminda Harrison, Paul Haywood, Tom Heath, Maurice Helt, Mark Henry, Tom Henry, Geraldine Jerry Marie Hain, Richard Hagan, Marilyn Helm, Owen Henning, Manfred Joseph Hepke, James Dale Herbert Sr., Lucille Herden, Arlene Hess, Gilbert Heward, Fred Hickman, Thelma M. Hildenberg, and we have more.
Velma Hildebrandt, Marlon Hill, David Hindall, Harold D. Hindericker, Anne Hinkhouse, Michael Hinton, Doris Hentz, Clarence Jack Hurd, Carl Hoffman, Benedict Howard Hoffman, Donald Hohenbaum, Cheryl A. Honecker, David Hosier, Ronald Eugene Hogsworth, Louis Holly, Sister Anelda Holtkamp, Delbert Holtkamp, Larry Hahn, Myron James Houghton, Adrian Eugenia Doolin Howard, Thomas Howes, Marcella Hubbard, Dorothy May Hubert, Diane Huddleston, Gary Hudgens, Donald Chaco Hunter III, Kevin M. Huss, Donald Husted, Ann Scannell Huxell, Gail Muggs Isaac, Dorothy Irene Eisminger, Peggy Ann Jackson, Katie G. Jacobs, Gloria Eileen Jacobsma, June Marie Janelle, Houston Jagar, Margaret James, John Steve Jansen, Daryl Joss, Raymond Jennings, Christine Johnson, Barbara Johnson Erlingson, Aileen Johnson, Carol Johnson, Dwayne Bud Johnson, Everett Johnson, Larry Johnson, Leonard Johnson, Mark Johnson, Mark Allen Johnson, Melvin Johnson, Barbara Jones, Dorothy Jones, Gladys Jeannie Jones, Kenneth Kenny Jones, Marie Jordan, Pamela Jane Yule Menez, Axel Cabaya, Alice Cotton, David Kelly, Donald Kirker, Darlene Kern, Donald Kern, Young Tae Jun, Beverly Kananda, Jim Kirkendall, Larry Clint, Elizabeth Betty Klein, Mary Klein, Jack Klingborg, Ruth Klotz, Raymond Klin, Jerry Robert Kilpatrick, Doug King, Marilyn Kirkpatrick, Norma J. Knight, Donald Knudsen, John Giannis Kokiti, Iron Konechny, Betty Sonner Cooker, Louis Copsis, Marjorie Ann Kramer, Rhonda Krantz, Michael Curlow, Evelyn Lecoq, John Laughlin, Jerry Lang, Leroy Putbull Langston, Richard Larson, Tricia Larson, Sarah Latimer, Janelle Siobhan Lattimore, Laverta Lee, Lauren Lee, Stuart Lefstein, Antonio C. Leon, Willie Levi, Frederick William Lewis, Chester Franklin Leaf Jr., Kenneth Leon, Nelda Lindhorst, Bernard Bernie Lee Lindstrom, Bill Lingle, Phyllis Link, Phyllis Liston, Emma Lohman, Mary Jill Long, Lucy Lawrence, Patricia Loader, Helen Lowry, James Joseph Luensman, Louis Lucan, Mary Lund, E. Joanne Lutz, Maurice Mockstad, Jimmy Lee Macklin, Randall McGee, Jeffrey Dwayne Mort, Barbara Malone, Arlene Duggan Maloney, Melvin Manternock, Marilyn Louise Markman, John Marks, John Marino, Gary Marple, Bill Martin, Jose Gabriel Martinez, Bart Mason, Nancy Chilton Maxwell, Harry McBride, Ed McClement, Charlene Lorraine McDermott, Walter McDonald, Sang Hai McDowell, Timothy Lewis McGee Jr., Christine McGowan, Barbara McGrain Brennan, James Burt McGrew, Lucy McKenzie, Ernest McKeon, Claudie D. McLean, William McLaughlin, John Allen McMurky, Joyce McMurrin, Janice L. McNelly, Darlene McWhirter, Betty Jean Mize, Phil Mink, Wilma Merritt, Barry Martes, John B. Mertz, Roy Wendell Messerschmidt, Cecilia Meyer, Corinne Meyer, Fred Meyer, Richard Meyer, James Jim Lowell Miller Jr., Eric Ridgway Miller, Gary Miller, Ray Miller, Rick Miller, Sherry Miller, Stephen Miller, Lyle Minnick, Judy Minnick, Jeffrey Mondry, Norman Montgomery, Craig A. Morris, Olive Morris, Richard Morris, Phyllis Jean Morrison, Jerry Morrow, Rosie Morrow, Donald Mott, Moram McConaughey, Ricky Murga, Wanda M. Mullen, Patricia Pat Craven Mulvihill, Mark Monday, Elizabeth Betty Murphy, Melinda Muti, L. Merle D. Myers, Carla Nave.
Thank you. Representative Art State from Cedar Rapids. I'll continue with the names. Leonard Andy Anderson Pierce, Cleo Bud Ping, Norma J. Pint, Warren Pohl, Jean Poindexter, Russell Lolo Porter, Scott Powell, Barbara Presnasil, Gabriella Michelle Price McCormick, Virginia Prince Renner, Robert Probasco, Susan K. Prohaska, Marilyn Elizabeth Prouty, Yvonne Gus Poots, Bonnie Pugsley, Roger Poles, Michelle Recanati, Jose Dolores Guevara Ramirez, Edwin Eddie Roy Raymond Day Ray, Greg E. Reisinger, Virginia Renner, Susan C. Susie Rum, R. Stephen Rice, Kelly Jo Richards, Virginia Richardson, Jean Marie Ruckelman, Hal Mersma, Leslie Risch, Harriet Reese, F. Alberta Ritter, Ronald Roberts, Ben Rogers, Mary Louise Kitty Rolfs, Minerva Amparo Rosales, Aaron Rabashkin, James Ruland, Robert D. Ruland, Heidi Rurer, Loretta Faye Winter Renlet, Beverly Russell, Brenda Samaniego, and Juan Samadillo.
Lynn Charles Neighbor, Sanford Nadich, Linda Nassif, Kenneth G. Nations Sr., Dennis Nauman, Gary Nauman, Marjorie Niermeyer, Charlie Neal, Sister Marianne Nehus, Christopher Nelson, Joe Nelson, Lola Nelson, Nelda Nelson, Beth Neubauer, Brent Ben Newton, Hong Nagin, Dewey Nielsen, Mark Nielsen, Ray Buster Nielsen, Russell Nielsen, Diane Norlius, Eunice North, Dorothy Norton, Eugene Norton, John Novy, Bradley Old, Kimberly Outlaw, Zachary Overy, Nancy Owen, Dwayne Palmer Sr., Stephen Palmer, John Perica, Frank Parks, Patrick Parks, Stanley Eugene Stan Patrick, Leslie Paulson, Gene Smith Payne, Matt Pfeiffer, Harry Perkins III, Norma Jean Perry, Eleanor Moody Pettit, Harvey Lewis Peters, Randy Peters, Richard Leroy Peters, Rick Pianka, Floyd Sanders, Lyle Sanis Sr., Chris Cecina, Nancy Saunders, Philip Saunders, Robert Schaefer, Gerald Schließ, Anita Schindler, Esther Schipper, William Schroeder, Marilyn Shornack, Patsy Schotneus, Robert Schultz, Edward Schultz, Shirley Ann Schultz, Arthur Scott, Alice Yvonne C., Lois Marguerite Sedgwick, Jackson Selk, Glenn Sells, Jerry Selliver, Franklin Delano Seitzinger, Retha Elizabeth Contry Sharp, Gary Sharon, Barbara Jean Sherman, Colleen Shoemaker, Charlene Schertz, Wilfred Willie J. Sickema, Ruth Ann Silverstein, Robert William Cervi, Gail Slack, Robert Lee Slezak, Larry Smalley, Bill Smith, Rochelle Tucker Smith, Shirley Ann Smith, Volney Smith, Victoria Vicky Ann Snarzik, Betty Laverne Sniffen, Judith Solecki, Harrison Harry Soliday, Luciano Sikin Solomon, Larry Sonner, Marion Sorensen, J. Elmer Spoonholtz, and Harold Spurgeon. This concludes the reading of the names of those we have lost to COVID-19 in this past year. These are just a selection of names. We had roughly 700 out of the more than 5,600 who have passed away since March 24th of 2020. These were our friends, our family members, our neighbors, our loved ones. If any of you watching have lost a loved one, we mourn with you and carry you in our heart today, and hope that this memorial has offered some peace. Among those who have submitted their names, there are just a few selected stories we are choosing to read at this time. He was a great father, grandfather, and mentor. COVID robbed her of seeing her great-grandkids grow up. We lost my great-uncle, and he was one of the greatest men that ever lived in my eyes. I loved to sit at his feet and listen to him talk about the past. He never had any kids of his own, but he loved his nieces, nephews, great-nieces, and nephews. She gave it her all and fought hard, but COVID won. Love and miss you. Far too many of our friends and family members have died from this disease over the past year, and it is our honor to recognize all those who have lost their lives today. Thank you so much for joining us, and please stay safe during the ongoing pandemic.